they beat the Seahawks. 5 touchdowns.
5 touchdowns.
Yes.
Stop it.
For AJ.
All right, Mike, we're back. NFL Week 3. This is when
Yeah.
things start looking a little bit better. And, hey, if you're in an elimination league, it's starting to get real. You know, you can't just pick against the Panthers every week, which, you know, would be a viable strategy so long as Bryce Young was still starting. But, hey, look, we're looking at elimination leagues, and what is your Week 3 most probable matchups to stay alive in your elimination league? So, Mike, I got 3 matchups for you.
Okay.
You tell me which of these is most likely going to be the one to pick if you're in an elimination league. Okay? First one, Bengals over the Commanders. Now, Bengals going into this, they're 0-2. Hey, you know what? If it was any other team than the Bengals, I'd be like raising red flags everywhere. But it feels like this is just the traditional norm for how the Bengals start under Joe Burrow. How do you feel about that matchup?
Well, I mean, they probably should have gotten the win last week.
Probably.
Some questionable stuff occurring.
You can't run through the back of a guy. I don't care what anybody says. That was pass interference. It might have been sold a little bit, but he still arrived early. That's pass interference.
When are the Chiefs going to get called for coming out of gates on a false start early?
I mean, that's
tackles are moving on every play.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
That play was absolutely pass interference.
Nevertheless, I mean, Cincinnati, I think, is probably in a desperation game a decent team to pick. I mean, you've still got a Commanders team that's going to be up and down all year.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a bad look. I'd say keep going through that.
Hey, Commanders are tied for first place in the NFC East. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's because Saquon had a lot of circa 2004 Snoop Dogg.
Hey, when you play for the Giants too long, the Giants start affecting you. Yeah. All right, next one we got for you: Browns over the Giants. Speaking of the Giants, how do you feel about this matchup? Now it is in the Meadowlands. Does that change your calculus here?
It's not a bad time to pick the Browns, honestly. I mean, if you're gonna do that in your elimination pool, it's not a terrible time to make the move on it. I mean, have we seen any signs of life from the Giants this year? Is there? I mean,
is Cutlets coming out yet?
He hasn't come out yet. I mean, that might give them some life. I think you got to go Locktober first, though, and it's coming up. So be ready. Locktober is forthcoming. But if Drew Lock isn't starting, the Giants are not a lock in this one. So this is a good option.
You like this one? All right, final one.
Yeah.
Seahawks over Dolphins. Dolphins coming off Tua, getting banged up again, and lots of calls for his retirement. I think that's a personal decision for him to make. And then secondly, after that, Skylar Thompson just doesn't look effective. Let's put it that way. Just not an effective, option there at the quarterback position. So, Mike, out of those 3 matchups, which do you think would you take in your elimination league? If you had all of them.
I'm taking the Browns over the Giants, Dirk. Yeah. I still, because maybe it's just that we're 25 years out from the boy band boom, but Sky still has a chance when he has Waddle and Hill as receivers. I could have a chance, it's a possibility. So I don't know. I think on a certain day, Miami still has the firepower on offense to do some things that could get a win in that game. Whereas I have not seen anything resembling a team that can win a football game out of the New York Giants yet. And as you've loved to point out, the Cleveland Browns have a tough defense and looked halfway decent.
How many safeties over/under on that? Safeties in that matchup. I'm going 2.
Well, there's 2. There's a free safety and a strong safety.
Oh God!
There's 2 safeties on the field, Dirk. I'm going Giants going down this week. Book it. It's like that Pizza Hut book.
I'm just going to make the case. I take Seattle on this one. I think you can save the Browns for another matchup a little bit later because they have some good matchups later on in the season. So I take the Seahawks here. They're 2-0. They're leading the NFC West, which is kind of a wild thing to think about. And they're going into just an absolutely banged up Dolphins roster who Mostert's probably still out. You don't have Tua for at least 4 weeks. I mean,
it's the A-chain gang.
This is the time to pick against the Dolphins. The Dolphins are always kind of a scary team. They could show up. They might not show up. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the better pick. Save the Browns because I think the Browns are going to be, I think they're going to be competing for the division this year.
Here's the bold pick. We're turning back the clocks. We went back to 99. We're going to go back to 07. The Dolphins this week, Dirk, surprise everyone and run the Wildcat with A-Chain and Hill.
Honestly, I think that's probably a more effective solution than going with
And
Skyler,
they beat the Seahawks. 5 touchdowns.
5 touchdowns. Stop it.
For A-Chain.